from a team standpoint, really good spot. So I think all you can ask for is to play meaningful games when December starts, and we're in that position. So excited about the opportunity in front of us. We'll have a bye week this week, kind of rest up. D'Amico talked about that yesterday a little bit, but it's really about the rest and recovery and kind of getting the players physically back up to speed, and been going at this for however many weeks now. But great opportunity in front of us. That's all you can ask for. You can't ask for anything more than that. So we're in a decent position. So we'll see what the next 4 weeks bring. Say as it pertains to Zeez, I'm sure I'll get a question, so I'll just try to get ahead of that here a little bit. So a couple things. I know D'Amico talked about it after the game yesterday. CJ had some comments right after the game as well, and Azeez put something out there. I think the most important thing is just the health and well-being of Trevor. Fortunately, he's going to be okay. So it's an unfortunate playing situation. I think one of the biggest issues that we sort of take umbrage with, I would say, as a team and organizationally, is a picture that's been painted of Azeez. Quite frankly, it's unfair. And I'd say one of the biggest issues that, and I probably speak for a lot of teams, not only the Houston Texans, but I think that's all teams ask for is consistency from the league. And I'd say in this situation, I mean, quite frankly, there's no consistency at all relative to the level of discipline that's been handed down. So when you go back, let's look at this season. Okay, we had multiple situations, multiple examples. All right, 2 really good players, I would say. Branch ejected against Green Bay, right? Plays the next week against us. Okay, Derwin ejected, all right, got suspended for 1 game. And Derwin's a great player, and Derwin's had some other situations that have come up. And I'd say even going back here, a player that we know well organizationally here, Kareem Jackson. Kareem's a good player. Was ejected, fined, ejected, and then suspended after 3 games. So we're going to say Azeez Al-Shaair, who nobody embodies our program more than Azeez, what he's about, what he's been through. You all know his story. There's not a more selfless individual, more about the team, who's earned the respects, that represents everything that we want this program to be about. I mean, this morning he was at a United Way event. So we're talking about some of the commentary that has been made about his character, about the person that he is, about what his intentions are, from people that, quite frankly, don't know anything about Azeez Al-Shaair, okay? And for the league to make some of the commentary that they made about lack of sportsmanship, lack of coachability, lack of paying attention to the rules, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. So I think the big thing from our – and I talk about a player who's never been suspended, never been ejected. So now we're saying that he's going to be suspended for 3 games. So, look, it is what it is. I think the big thing from our standpoint, and all teams want this, is just some level of consistency. And we've talked to the league, quite frankly. We don't have a good explanation. D'Amico talked to them yesterday. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm sure Azeez will go through whatever process he's going to go through, and then we'll deal with it accordingly. But I think what we take umbrage is just the picture that's been painted about Azeez, his intentions, who he is as a person. I mean, quite frankly, it's bullshit. And it's unfair to the individual. It's unfair to the organization. I mean, we love everything about Azeez Al-Shaair, what he means to this team, what he brings to this team. He was elected a captain after being here for 4 months. So, again, like, we have a lot of respect for our opponents. We have a lot of respect for other teams in this league. We want to do things the right way. I think D'Amico's explanation about the situation from a defensive perspective yesterday, well, quite frankly, was spot on. It's a tough situation. Again, it's an unfortunate play. And, again, going back to the first thing I said, the most important thing is the health and safety of our players. And I'd say the health and well-being of Trevor, and hopefully Trevor's going to be okay. But to speak on Azeez's intentionality about what he intended to do, some of the comments that have been made, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. So, like, we're going to support Azeez. We love everything about him. We're glad he's a part of this team. So I just wanted to I'm sure I was going to get asked about it, so I figured I might as well address it ahead of time. So, and then at some point we could probably talk about football, which is what everybody's here to do. So, so I'll leave it there.
Issue the final paragraph in the league statement.
I mean, Landry, it's a couple. I would just say, to make a comment again, when you put information and make a statement in a letter with not having ever talked to a player, okay, not knowing the player, and then to basically paint a picture, you guys read it. Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values of the NFL. So that essentially implies that Azeez doesn't give a crap about the fans, doesn't give a crap about playing football the right way, is not coachable. it could be further from the truth. But when you make these statements and accusations and then you paint a picture of a player, quite frankly, like, nobody has a lot of respect for that. I think that's, I would say, part of the issue here. So again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Like, everybody's going to have an opinion. Totally understand and get that. But again, and going back to what I talked about, like the level of consistency relative to discipline that's mandated, it's got to match up in some capacity. We're trying to understand it. And again, I speak for the Texans, but I speak for a lot of the other teams in the league as well. Everybody just wants some level of consistency, level playing field, just so we have an understanding so we can apply the rules in the right way. And again, I would say another thing that nobody's really talking about, so the way the suspension is designed specifically, so then essentially you're saying you can't have any contact with the player for however many weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, right? So if the league says they care about the well-being of their players, right, I would say in a time like this, I'm sure Azeez is probably going through a lot of things, like, we can't even provide support on a multitude of levels. So it's a little bit hypocritical to be able to say, yeah, we want to support the players, but you know what? Organization can't have contact with them for 4 weeks. Okay, so what do you want to do? You just got to go float by himself? I mean, so there's just a lot of layers of this, and I think we got to take a step back and just try to absorb it and try to understand it. And again, I think the big thing from our perspective is just consistency. That's the main thing.
He's never been POV from
Go ahead, Lane. Just finish up, and then we'll go.
The after the fact, because it's been well discussed, the defensive perspective and the quarterback and all that. What about after the fact? Because I know D'Amico talked about, Jacksonville might have kind of intensified, overreacted. What was your perspective of what went down there, and could that have factored into the decision?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the league. I would say, like, football's an emotional game. So, I mean, honestly, it looked like I was watching, like, the Michigan-Ohio State game. So, in all seriousness, I think there's a way everybody needs to handle themselves, and there's a certain professionalism everybody needs to have. It's an emotional game. Things are going to happen. But there's a right way to handle things. And, again, from Jacksonville's perspective, they're trying to defend their teammate, okay? And, in the end, you're just worried about your team and the well-being. And, again, even look at Hines Allen after the game. Like, his comment was basically, you know what, I'm not even sure Azeez should be fined or suspended. And here's we have a lot of respect for Hines Allen. He's one of the best players in the league. So you're talking about a defensive player making a comment about a situation that happened in a game about his own particular player. So, again, everybody has an opinion. They're all out there. I mean, I'm sure everybody was talking about this yesterday, which I don't want to say that factored into it, but honestly, I probably factored into the overall decision-making process. So, look, it is what it is. We'll handle it like we handle everything else. Whatever the result is, we'll deal with it, and then we'll move forward. Go ahead, Aaron.
Super question. The commentary about him, a lot of the guys that have commented are former defensive players. Many of them, you go back and watch the videos, same kind of hits in a different era, but they're saying, you talk about hypocritical, they're talking about him, but they did the same thing when they were playing after follow-up. Yeah,
I think in the end, it's all about, do they know the person Azeez Al-Shaair? That's the most important thing. Like, the game has evolved. We all understand that. So, I mean, we grew up, some of us grew up kind of a different time and seen football play a little different way. So the rules are what the rules are. So we try to play within the rules, try to play good, clean football. That's how we coach it. That's what we believe in. We never walk on the field with the intention of trying to harm someone, okay? It's a physical sport. It's a physical nature. Things happen during the course of games. The league has to mandate, the rules and regulations however they see fit. I think the biggest issue is just the overall level of consistency and just trying to establish some level of precedent, which that's all we're trying to grapple with and understand.
And the follow-up is just that the linebacker depth, you did have him out for some time with a knee injury. The guys you have filling in, and if you could give us an update on Christian Harris, who D'Amico said maybe he's back soon.
Yeah, we've had a number of players that, to your point, that played at that position. Devin's come in, giving us some snaps at different points. Henry's done a really good job from start to finish, even going back to last year, as our leading tackler. So, and again, I'd say Neville Hewitt, there's a guy nobody really talks about, but, whenever a guy goes in a game, he's a tackling machine. He had 8 tackles there the other day. He's one of our best players in the kicking game. And I'd say relative to Christian Harris, I'd say definitely making some progress. I think he's getting closer. I'd say there's certainly a shot we're going to see him sooner rather than later. So whoever we have available, I think that's the one thing about this team, like we felt going into the season when we built the team and put the team together, that we had depth across positions, not only on the roster, but some of our off the roster depth. We've had a number of practice squad players who have participated in games, even going back to the game the other day. Jared Wayne, we had to elevate him with Hutch's situation. And then when Teagan got hurt late in the week, we elevated Irv Smith, who'd been here. So trying to have as much depth on the roster and off the roster as well. So wherever the players come from, we'll make the most of it, and we'll go out there. And, I think the focus right now is just getting ready for a really good Miami team when we come back next week.
Do you all plan to appeal, and also aside from that, do you all plan to voice your concerns to the league afterwards?
Oh, we have. I mean, D'Amico had a conversation, with the league yesterday. I'm not sure, it looks like it fell on deaf ears, but I mean, it is what it is. So whatever a process is in place, the players have a process, the players, a PA, they have a process that they go through. So whatever the process is, like if we're part of that, great. If we're not, we're not.
First question. I mean, obviously we're talking delineating Azeez's issue after the Chicago game. I mean, that's been highlighted all around by the hit on the sideline to the quarterback. And then to go back to his Tennessee days, they sort of put a compilation of all his greatest hits. And following up with that question, is the National Football League still collecting revenues off the greatest hits on on all these that they put out about these big hits and blowing up players? Are they still collecting revenues on that?
Yeah,
we're talking about player safety.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. But again, there's been an emphasis on player safety, which there should be. The health and safety of the players is the most important thing. Like, we all understand that. Players understand that. Coaches understand that. We understand it from our perspective. It's a physical game, and I think there's a lot of plays that are legal plays, that are clean football, which is what the league wants to promote, which we're all in favor of. I would say by the same token, there's multiple hits in multiple games. I mean, again, we can go back to last year. I mean, Quinton Williams bounced CJ's head off the ground last year. Okay, no penalty, no late hit, no nothing, all right? So we're saying, we're okay with that hit? So this just goes back to the level of consistency. So you want to play a game the right way, trying to take the head out of football and all that, and, the different tackling styles and all that, but it's a physical game. It's played at a high rate of speed. I think what you're seeing on defense especially, you're seeing high-level athletes, faster, more explosive, and contact is pretty significant. So we all want to do it within the rules, and I'd say even the play that you alluded to going back to the Chicago game with Caleb, I mean, he was in bounds. He hit him in bounds. So, again, there's a fine line, and I think defensive players, quite frankly, and I think D'Amico articulated it very well yesterday, I mean, they're in a tough spot. So you're trying to make a split-second decision sometimes, and, things happen. And, again, you're never trying to harm or injure a player, at least most players. I mean, some players might not give a crap. I mean, they're just, they talk about, say one thing, but then do another thing. So as far as what the league does and all that, all our focus is on the Houston Texans is just trying to coach our players the right way, getting them to play a certain way. We want to play fast, physical on defense. I mean, everything starts with swarm. It's about running. It's about getting as many hats to the ball. It's about getting the ball carrier on the ground. And as long as D'Amico Ryans is the head coach, that philosophy is not going to change. So we have to find players that have that mindset, that fit that mentality, which I would say we got a boatload of them on defense or on a field, which is why we're pretty good on defense.
On a subject that isn't about the suspension, with CJ in his second year, how would you evaluate how he's played and how he's developed as he continues to lead your team?
Yeah, I think he's had a really good year. I mean, his leadership, what he brings to the team, his communication, his ownership of the offense. I mean, I think he's, fourth in the league in yards or fourth in completions. He's ahead of Mahomes in some categories. Who, Patrick is arguably he'll be going down one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the sport. So we're glad that CJ, our quarterback, has made a lot of progress. There's some plays like all of our players that you probably wish they could have back. So, but happy he's our quarterback, happy with what he brings to the table. Played a really good game the other day, really clean game, made a lot of good decisions, and he was a big reason that we won the football game. So glad he's our quarterback. Wouldn't want anybody else leading this team.
How important has Joe Mixon been to your team's success this year? And has he even exceeded expectations that you may have had for him coming in after that great career in Cincinnati? Joe's
been phenomenal. I can't say enough great things about Joe Mixon, what he brings to the table. Just his mindset, the way he plays, his physicality, his toughness, his leadership. He wasn't named the captain initially, but then we kind of, Steph getting hurt and kind of losing a little bit of leadership there. And then D'Amico making Joe captain for the rest of the year. I mean, that was something that was earned. That's not just we're giving out party favors. That was something that his teammates see that and they respect that. But can't say enough great things about Joe Mixon. He's been a good football player. He's a great teammate. He's a good leader. He's a good mentor for younger players. He's always been a very productive player and very versatile. He's kind of been a three-down back, which there's not a lot of those in this league, and he sort of fits that profile. So glad Joe's here. He certainly has helped us, and hopefully he can help us here the next 4 weeks as well, 4 games.
Nick, it feels like last year you guys didn't have the opportunity to maybe put the offensive line you'd planned on the field. It feels like maybe you had that for most of this year, a good portion of it. What's kind of your evaluation been of the offensive line so far this season?
Yeah, overall, it's been pretty solid. I mean, there's been some games a little bit better than others, probably since the Jets game. I'd say pass protection specifically has probably been a little bit better. I mean, the Jets game, quite frankly, we didn't play very well in that game. I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of factors that went into it, but overall, we're a better running team than we were last year. Part of that is Joe. I mean, but you can't gain, 100 yards on a road in 6 games, break some NFL record without having a good offensive line. The way we finished the game there the other day, I mean, the play was well blocked. And basically for the entire day against a good front, CJ had a pretty clean pocket to throw from. So certainly made some progress. We've had to move some people around here a little bit, with KG going out, Patterson going in at center. I'd say Juice Juice is a better center than he is a guard. But that was the best thing for the team, was to move Juice over to guard. He's handled that really well. So, overall, we're certainly making progress. So, like most areas of the team, we've had some good plays. We had some plays that we'd certainly like to have back. But all we can do is just try to figure out some areas I think tangibly we can improve, which I think we're capable of doing, and see if we can put that together here in the next 4 weeks, because that's the opportunity that's in front of us.
You all were making a lot of the moves you all made this offseason. Did you believe you all were capable of potentially competing for a Super Bowl, and where do you stand on that right now?
Yeah, I mean, our philosophy has always been just focus on the present, focus on right now, just try to put together a good football team that can basically compete in any situation against any team. So that's where the focus is. So anything outside of that, I mean, I've never been caught up in any hypotheticals, because it doesn't really matter. What matters is your work and your preparation that week, and just how well you executed against that particular opponent. So we felt we had a good football team. We put together a good football team in the offseason. We feel like we got a good football team. I mean, we've lost 2 games on 2 walk-offs. So we've had an opportunity, other than the Minnesota game where we didn't play very well, we've basically had an opportunity to win each game. So it's all you can ask for. So in the end, it's going to come down to how well we execute each week. Well, the next opportunity for that's going to be against Miami.
Nick, you're talking about the amalgamation of this team. What's left in your quiver? I know you probably got a board somewhere with some players that are there still in your quiver, some things that maybe if you got a chance to maybe improve this team down the stretch from going into the playoffs that you will pull the trigger on?
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline, is passed. So really, in terms of adding players to your team, there's probably limited options. So I'd say most teams are in a situation where either players coming back from injury or injured reserve or on their practice squad. I mean, the chances of a player on the street really coming in and making any significant impact in a particular team probably going to be limited. So, we'll feel comfortable with the players that are here, the 70 players, or however many people we have in the building, and we think that we can win football games. We have won football games with the people that are here, so we have a lot of faith and confidence in those people. So once the season is over, I mean, once we kind of turn the page on a 24 season and start to think about 25 season, then we'll figure out what our options look like relative to sort of improving the team. But got a good opportunity in front of us, got a good football team, a lot of good players. So in the end, it's going to come down to our execution. And I'd say 2 areas, if we can improve them, I'd say limiting the turnovers. We second in the league in takeaways, or I've turned the ball over a little bit more. So if we can just mitigate the turnovers and then improve a little bit in the red area, both offensively and defensively, forget about anything else. You can talk about whatever you want. In those 2 areas, if we can make some small improvements, we're probably going to be in a pretty good position. So we'll see how it goes.
Nick, obviously you building of the team, you always talk about the team. How much has the team that you built helped develop CJ to a quarterback where you're like, we're so happy to have him as our, how much the team that you built around helped develop him to this point?
Yeah, it's not about the team that I've built. It's about the team that all of us have kind of put together. But, we feel like we have a lot of good players on this football team at all levels. Offensively, got good skill players. I mean, number of good receivers, good group of tight ends, good offensive line, good backs. So in the end, it's all about our performance and how we execute on the field. So certainly had our moments. We've had a lot of good plays, a lot of good out there. And hopefully we have more good than bad here at the end. So whatever we get, we're going to earn. So right now we've earned 8 and 5. So you got 4 more games in front of us. So hopefully we can go out there and just play good, solid, clean football, and then see where we are at the end of the year.
As a GM, you always have high hopes for guys that you draft. When you look back on your first draft here, having an opportunity to bring in Nico in that 3rd round, how cool has it been to see him blossom into the wide receiver that we see right now?
Yeah, the credit goes to Nico and Ben McDaniels and the offensive staff. So I'm sure if you've talked to Nico, he was a little bit of a raw player, but he's 6'4", 225 pounds, who ran fast and got behind the defense at Michigan, and didn't play his last year, and then you kind of had to make some projection there. So, we felt Nico was a decent player, somebody that we want to work with, but nobody has worked harder than Nico Collins to improve and make himself a good football player. And really, it's a good example of a young player who has to go through off-season, go through some adversity. I mean, he didn't have a lot of success, even going back to 22. I mean, he was injured and caught 30 passes, but he never lost faith. Tremendous attitude, like great human being, great person, always upbeat, works his ass off and has improved and gotten better and is taken to coaching. And I would say specific to that room, there's been a lot of consistency because Ben's been here kind of from the beginning. So, I mean, the credit goes to Nico and credit goes to the offensive staff and Ben McDaniels for the work that they put in. So, happy for Nico and just happy for him. He's a great person.
Nick, the continued development of Derek Stingley Jr. and his...
Yeah, well, go ahead, Aaron, and then...
Nick, the continued development of Derek Stingley Jr., coverage skills, tackling, all the things you see from him. Is he even better than perhaps you thought he might be when you picked him?
I mean, similar to the question about Nico. I mean, we felt Derek was a good player. I mean, he was a good player at LSU. I mean, a damn good player. So, I mean, that's why we drafted him. So, I mean, it's similar to Nico in some respects. He's worked and made himself into the player that he is. This league isn't about talent. I mean, it's about talent, but it's really not. It's about work. It's about mental and physical toughness, and it's about doing it consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month. Derek's had multiple consecutive off seasons. Really good off season last year. Played well. A really good off season this year. And honestly, he's improved in some areas. Probably in run force and tackling are some of the areas that he's probably improved the most. So you'd be hard pressed to say there's too many corners playing better than Derek Stingley. Maybe other than Surtain. I mean, Surtain basically does everything well. I don't think he's given up a completion all year. But I mean, Derek's a good player. We thought he was a good player when we drafted him. And nobody's a finished product when they're drafted. I mean, forget about what anybody tells you or what anybody thinks. That's a fallacy. So it's about what you do when you walk in the building, and Derek has worked really hard to make himself into the player that he is. So credit to him, credit to Dino, and because those are the people that deserve the credit.
Based on what you just said in regards to talent, about where you are right now at 8-5, when you first began the season, is this about where you thought you would be, or did you think it'd be better, or what you think? Honestly,
I have never have any idea how it's going to go. Nobody does. Like, for them to tell you, like, oh, yeah, we're going to win this many games, I mean, they're in the wrong business. Like, I'm never going to say that. We're never going to say that. It's all we can do is try to put together a good football team, try to come in, have the right mindset, and then in the end go out there and try to be 1-0 each game. And if you make enough plays and do the right things that are conducive to winning, you will. If you don't, then you won't. There were, going to week 12, 82 games were decided by 6 points or less. All right, so we have the most competitive league in all of professional sports. I know the Rockets and Astros fans right now probably hate me, but that's the truth. So we get one opportunity each week. And then you look at this past weekend, 12 of 16 games were one score. And then if you add in the Denver game, which was 9 points, you're talking about 80% of the games are one-score games, which speaks to how small the margins are. Everybody's talented. Every team in this league has talent. So it's what do you do with your opportunities? How good is your execution? What are you doing on the margin? So that's where our focus is. As far as what the record's going to be, how many games you're going to win, honestly, I'm not that smart. I can't figure that out. So all we can do is just try to do the right things consistently day after day, week after week, put ourselves in a position to have a good opportunity, which as we sit here today, December, whatever it is, we got a great opportunity in front of us. Doesn't guarantee squat. All right? That's all it guarantees is an opportunity, so we're excited about what's in front of us.
Nick, there's no secret that over the last couple of weeks, his team has had some second half scoring deficiencies. From your assessment and what you're seeing, how do you think they're coming out of the bye week that they can get themselves going again? And has there been any talk of maybe some shared play calling duty with Bobby?
Yeah, the answer to that last part is absolutely not. Like, Bobby Slowik's a great coordinator. He's done a great job. He's a great coach. And, we've done a lot of good things offensively. And I would say as far as the second half goes, in the end, it just comes down to execution. So if the other team makes more plays than you do, then like they're going to win. So can we do a better job? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like do better on first down. All right, put ourselves in second and manageable, which is third and manageable. Take care of the football. So in the end, this league is all about execution. It's about doing little things, about controlling field position, which I'd say we haven't talked about the kicking game because nobody cares about the kicking game, but like we're pretty good in the kicking game. Like we can cover kicks. I think we're second in net punting or third in net punting. Tommy's done a really good job here, so to be able to control field position. The whole kickoff return is kind of a wash because basically the average starting field position is about the 29-yard line, so it's about the same. And then Kaimi, I mean, I don't know, he's like broke the record for most 50-yard field goals. So, you know, he's missed a couple short ones. So, like, we got pretty good in the kicking game. We got a good defense, you know, pretty good on offense. So, put ourselves in a good position. So, in the end, how do we execute with our next opportunity, which Miami's in front of us, which is a damn good football team, which we're going to have to contend with, you know, what Miami brings to the table. That's where the focus is. So, in the end, good football is about good execution, and, you know, second half, it's no different than the first half. Like, there are times we've executed a little bit better than in the first half than we have the second half. Played well in the second half the other day. I know D'Amico got asked about what happened in the first half, so, I mean, that's football. So it's an ebb and flow to every game. It's usually going to come down to a handful of plays, 6 or 8 in each game. You don't really know when those plays are going to take place, but you make them or the other team makes them, all right? And whoever makes the most, they're probably going to win.
With that said, I know expectations and all that. You obviously have one goal, like one major goal, win as many games as possible. From what you've seen from this team 13 weeks in, what are the improvements that need to be made for the final stretch of the season for you to be able to potentially get to that highest level of expectation?
No, it's fair, Landry. I mean, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. So if we can kind of minimize some of the turnovers offensively, all right, because when you just give the ball the other way, and, you know, again, the correlation between if you took everything else out, 0 turnovers, correlation of winning, I mean, it's pretty high. I mean, it's like 85, 90%. So that's one area, and continue to take the ball away, which, again, we're second in the league. So it's one of the things that we do really well. And then red area execution. So kind of offensively and defensively. I mean, we're like, I don't know, 27th or 28 in a red area defensively. So it's about getting stops. It's about preventing points. And then offensively, it's converting those 4-point play opportunities. So I would say those two areas, if we can make some maybe subtle improvements in those areas, then that could potentially help us. Because, again, the margins of victory and or loss in our games, other than the Minnesota game, right, have been basically negligible, right? 3 or 4 points here, 6, 7 points here. So when you look at those two particular situations, you start to see a little bit of correlation. But I would say those are a couple things. If, you know, we can improve, might have a shot.
So after the bye, you guys have 3 games in 10 days against rather tough
Thanks for the
competition.
reminder. Yeah.
Tough competition. How difficult do you think that stretch is going to be, and kind of what's the message to the team about, you know, getting through that to get to where y'all want to go?
Yeah, it's really just take it one day, one game at a time. So all we can control, kind of a normal week relative to the Miami preparation. So, I mean, we'll come back, you know, next week. Players are off here for a number of days, kind of an extra day on Monday, go through a normal week, and then play, you know, Miami, and then you kind of lose a day, you know, playing Saturday night. So, and then after that game, then you basically don't practice, right? You have walkthrough and preparation. So I think the focus for the players and coaches is going to be, especially early, will be in Miami. We have other people and other resources allocated staff-wise, kind of preparing, kind of looking ahead a little bit to provide the information to the coaches. So we'll kind of segment those responsibilities, but the focus is on Miami. The only thing we can worry about is Miami. Anything beyond that, like, I mean, it's Christmas and all that, but we can't worry about that. Like, all we can do is focus on Miami, and then when we get through the Miami game, then we can kind of turn the page to the next. I mean, look, these are good football teams we're playing. I mean, the next 4 games, good football teams. So, you know, we're either going to earn it or we're not. I mean, not to oversimplify it, but that's the truth.
Kalen and Kamari have gotten significant playing time. What do you think about the way they've developed so far and how they performed in the first few games?
Yeah, we felt that they could make a contribution here at some point. I mean, Kamari's basically done it since the day he's walked in the building. So even going back to the spring, even going back to OTAs, I mean, just his mindset, the way he plays, is as competitive as any player we probably have on the football team. He's tough. He's physical. He tackles. I mean, there's a reason Georgia won a lot of games because they had a lot of players down here with that type of mindset. So happy that Kamari's here. I think Kalen continues to evolve. And then one thing that he's done consistently is take the ball away. You know, he did it at USC. He's done it since the beginning of the season. They're both young players who have had some modicum of success, but what's happened in the past doesn't really have any ramification about what happens moving forward, and they understand that. Say most young players, specifically our rookies, I mean, they play a lot of football here. You talk about 4 preseason games, 13 regular season games. They've been playing football for 17 games. I mean, it's 2 college seasons already. I mean, with all the playoffs and all the garbage they got going on there. But, I mean, they're good football players, they're good young kids, got the right mindset. So we're glad that they're here, and they're going to be good players here for a long time.